They didn't block you. They didn't fight you. They didn't even say goodbye. They just stopped, showing up. No explanation, no warning, just a slow, subtle fade into silence. And you sat there replaying every conversation, every moment, every gesture, wondering what you did wrong. You stared at your phone longer than you'd admit, typing out messages and deleting them just as fast, hoping, maybe, just maybe, they were thinking of you too, but they weren't. They were living, laughing, scrolling, sleeping. Peacefully, while your chest carried the quiet grief of being left without a funeral, and that's what hurt the most. Not that they left, but that it didn't seem to cost them anything. No sadness, no second thoughts, no hey, are you okay? Just silence, like you've never mattered at all. And in that silence, brutal truth echoed. You didn't lose friends, you lost people who were completely okay watching you slip away, because you were never holding their hearts. You were holding their convenience. You were always the one who cared first, the one who reached out, the one who remembered. Birthdays without Facebook reminders, the one who noticed when their energy felt off. Even through a text message, you were the listener. The late night therapist, the emotional landing pad for everyone who had no one except you. When they had a breakup, you were there. When they needed a favor, you said yes. When they disappeared and came back weeks later like nothing happened, you forgave. Not because you were weak, but because you loved. Hard, because you believed loyalty didn't end when it got quiet, because you thought friendship meant showing up even when it wasn't convenient. But deep down, a small voice kept whispering, what about me, who checks on the one who's always checking in? Who calls the person who picks up on everyone else's silence? Who remembers your favorite song when you're the one who's sad? The answer? No one, because people don't realize how much space you hold for them until they try to call. It's not there anymore. But back then, you didn't walk away. You made excuses. They're probably just busy. They've got a lot going on. They're not good at staying in touch. So you stayed, even when your calls went unanswered, even when you were always the one making plans, even when they forgot the things that mattered to you, but expected you to remember every detail about their lives. You learned to shrink your needs, to lower your expectations, to believe that caring too much was your flaw. It's not their failure. You turned your heartbreak into silence, your confusion into understanding, your loneliness into loyalty, and the saddest part, you convinced yourself that this was normal, that this is just what friendship looks like in adulthood, that everyone's busy, everyone forgets, everyone's overwhelmed. But here's the truth. The one that shattered your chest the day it clicked, they weren't too busy, they just weren't too. It's busy for everyone. They had time to post, time to reply to others, time to show up for people who offered less than you ever did. They didn't forget how to communicate. They just decided you weren't a priority, and slowly, painfully, you began to realize you were never really in their heart. You were in their comfort zone. You were in their good weather. You were their emotional convenience, not their commitment. They loved what you brought, not who you were. And when the day came where you needed something, where you didn't have the energy to keep giving, no one showed up. You dropped the rope and no one picked it up. You went quiet. And the silence didn't bother them. You disappeared and they didn't come looking, because they were never afraid of losing you. Why? Because they never thought you'd leave. You were always the one who held things together, who said, it's okay when who made room for others while your own heart felt overcrowded. They didn't believe you'd ever get tired, ever set a boundary, ever say, no, I matter too. But you did, because something shifted, not in them, in you. It was subtle, like the soft creak of a closing door, like the last time you laughed at a one-sided joke, like the moment you realized silence was no longer a threat. It was a gift. You stopped explaining, stopped reaching, stopped hoping they'd become someone they never were. You didn't send a final message. You didn't post a quote to make a statement. You didn't burn bridges. You just walked away from the ones who never built one to meet you halfway. And for the first time, you were honest. I didn't lose friends. I lost people who were completely okay watching me disappear. And now, you're not bitter. You're just awake. The next chapter isn't about loss. It's about realization and the next person to experience. Your loyalty, they'll feel the weight of it. Because this time, you're not offering your soul to people who only know how to sip from it and walk away. You always thought that when you stopped showing up, someone would notice. Even just one person. Someone would say, "Hey, it's been a while." Someone would check in. Someone would feel the space you left in their life. But no one did. The people who once filled your days with laughs, group chats, calls, fake plans that never happened, they moved on, seamlessly, effortlessly. As if you'd never been there. As if you'd never held space. For their pain, as if you never dropped what you were doing just to be their safe place. As if your love was disposable. And that's when it hit you. You weren't surrounded by friends, you were surrounded by people who loved your light but never planned to refill your flame. Because the moment you dimmed, no one came to reignite you. The moment you stopped texting first, the chat went silent. The moment you didn't laugh at their mediocre effort, the room grew awkward. The moment you needed more, they vanished. And for a while you questioned yourself. You asked, "Am I too sensitive?" Maybe. They didn't mean it. Maybe I just expected too much. But here's the part that hurts and heals. You didn't expect too much. You just finally stopped accepting. So little the distance didn't change them. It revealed them when you pulled away. You weren't testing anyone. You were tired. You were drained. You were done giving. CPR2 connections that were flatlining without. Your effort, you weren't asking them to beg. You weren't looking for drama. You just wanted someone to meet you. Halfway, but halfway never came. And maybe that's what shattered you the most. Not their absence, but the ease with which they accepted it. You realized that they didn't forget you. They just didn't feel your absence. It's the way you felt theirs. And in that silence, a shift happened. Something inside you broke. But not in the way you feared. It was the kind of breaking that births clarity. You saw how many of your friendships were based on your consistency, not mutual care. You saw how you were always the emotional first responder, but no one was trained to handle your emergencies. You saw how often you were chosen for convenience, not connection. You saw that most people don't miss you. They miss what you do for them, and the day you stop doing, they disappear. Not because they're bad people, but because they were never built to hold the kind of depth you offered. And you were always oceans trying to love puddles. You drowned in your own loyalty, hoping someone would learn to swim. But they just stood on the shore and waved until your wave stopped reaching them. And when they did, they didn't swim in, they didn't dive after you. They turned around and walked away. That's when you stop asking questions. You stop replaying the last conversation. Stop wondering if you said something wrong. Stop waiting for a message that isn't coming. Because when someone truly values you, they feel the space you leave. They don't just miss your presence. They mourn it. They don't just remember your laughter. They feel the ache of its absence. They don't just notice you're gone. They come find you. But no one came. And that's when you knew you didn't lose them. They were never holding on. To begin with, you let yourself bleed in silence for people who wouldn't notice if you died inside. You cried in bathrooms, wiped your face, and re-entered rooms full of people who had no idea you were breaking, and yet you still stayed loyal. Until one day your soul whispered, "Enough." And in that quiet enough, something louder than any goodbye echoed, "I deserve more than this." You began to understand. Your worth doesn't depend on who chooses to see it. And their silence? It wasn't peaceful, it was revealing. It showed you who was really there. And who was only there because you made it easy for them. Because here's the raw truth. Real friends don't let you fade without a fight. Real friends don't feel your absence. And shrugged. They don't go silent when you go quiet. They don't watch. You pull away and let you disappear. They lean in, they ask. They show up. And when no one did that for you, you stopped feeling sorry. You stopped chasing closure from people who never offered clarity. You stopped handing your heart to people who held it like glass, only to drop it. When they were bored, you stopped performing emotional labor for people. Who paid you with inconsistency? You didn't send a farewell speech. You didn't call them out. You just left the chat in your heart, quietly, and they still haven't noticed, because that's who they were all along. Not your people, not your tribe, not your soul circle, just familiar noise. And now, you're learning to love the silence, because in that silence, you finally hear yourself again, your needs, your worth, your voice. You hear that you were never too much. You were just more than they were capable of holding. And now, you're saving. You're light for the ones who bring matches, not buckets. You're saving your heart for the ones who know how to hold it without trembling. You're saving your loyalty for the rare ones who wouldn't dare risk losing it. Because when you pulled back and no one came after you, that wasn't your loss. That was your liberation. It doesn't hit them right away, not at first. Not when you stop texting, not when you go a week without liking their post. Not even when you walk past them in public and your eyes don't linger like they used to. No, it hits them later, much. Later it hits them when they go to share something, and suddenly, remember, you're not there anymore. It hits them when they open their phone in a moment of emptiness and realize your name is no longer the safe place it used to be. It hits when life stops being entertaining and starts feeling heavy, and they go looking for that one person who always lightened the load. But you're gone. Not blocked, not bitter, not screaming, just gone, not in distance. In access, not in presence, in permission. And they wonder, where did they go? When did they stop caring? Why does this silence feel louder than their presence ever did? And the answer is simple. Because when you feel everything, you never leave with noise. You leave with gravity. You leave with history, with softness, with meaning. And when you take all of that with you, the void is deafening, because now they have to sit in the silence they taught you to live in, the silence they used to weaponize. Against you, the cold shoulder they gave you when you asked for clarity, the ghosting they did when you expressed. A boundary, the one-word replies you tolerated for months while you poured paragraphs of your soul into people who barely knew how to hold their own name. But now, the roles are reversed, and it's not revenge, it's reality. They're feeling the echo of everything they once ignored, and it stings, because now they remember who always listened without interrupting, who always cared without needing applause, who celebrated their wins louder than they did, who made effort feel effortless, who stayed. Even when the room felt colder than a stranger's shoulder, they remember how easy it was to call you too much when all you were was in tune. How quick they were to say you've changed when all you did was grow out of needing crumbs from empty hands. And now you're not the same. You don't explain anymore. You don't overthink your texts. You don't stay up wondering if you're loved, because you've stopped outsourcing your worth, and that scares them. Because the you they knew, the you who waited, who begged, who blamed themselves for everything, that version of you is gone. You buried them quietly beneath the layers of "I'm fine" that no one ever questioned you. Mourned them privately, through nights of wondering why love always felt like negotiation. You let them die in silence while the world called it growth. But you knew it was a funeral, and who you are now is not bitter, not guarded, not hard, just precise. You don't beg anymore, you observe. You don't explain your worth, you embody it. You don't chase love because love that runs isn't love. It's performance. You don't scream for validation because your presence now speaks so loud, only the emotionally fluent can hear it. And the ones who were fine losing you, they hear it now in the way you carry your peace, in the way you don't flinch at silence, in the way you no longer bend, stretch, soften, just to make space for people who never planned to sit with you when you were breaking. You gave them the kind of love that could have rebuilt them, but they mistook it for convenience. And now, they're surrounded by vibes, and no one who sees them the way you did. They're surrounded by people who laugh at their jokes, but no one who feels the sadness beneath their smile. They have followers, but not witnesses. Likes, but not loyalty. Notifications, but no connection. Because what you gave wasn't attention. It was alignment. It was presence. It was depth in a world that lives on the surface. And now that they've returned to the shallow, they finally understand what it means to miss water you never learned to swim in. You were never too deep. They were just too scared to dive. And now, they talk about you like a ghost. She just changed. He stopped trying. They switched up, but they'll never say I pushed them away. I took them for granted. I didn't recognize what I had until I couldn't reach it anymore. Because ownership requires depth, and that was always your department, not theirs. So now, they wear nostalgia like a scar, and you wear freedom like armor. Because, the truth, you didn't lose friends. You lost people who only clapped when you were quiet, who only stayed when you played small, who only loved the version of you that didn't love yourself yet. And now you're not angry. You're unavailable. You're not guarded. You're guarded by growth. You don't build walls. You build doors, and only open them for people who knock with consistency, not charm, and those who were once fine watching. You fade, they're watching you now, shining, evolving, peaceful, and they're realizing something they'll never say out loud. You were the real thing, and real things don't return to the hands that drop them. Outro, you didn't lose them, you found yourself. So, if you're still mourning people who didn't flinch when you walked away, stop. You didn't lose people. You released placeholders. You didn't get left behind. You walked ahead. You didn't lose friends. You lost noise and gained clarity, because now you know the right ones don't need to be chased. The real ones don't vanish when you need them most. And your depth deserves more than people who only know how to stand at the edge. Afraid to swim? You didn't lose them. They lost someone they'll never replace. And you finally found the one person who always deserved your loyalty first. Yourself.